Good morning. Welcome back to Venture Daily. OpenAI says China is racing to dominate AI in developing nations. Bumble is laying off 240 employees, or about 30% of its staff. And Spirit Airlines seeks to stop a JetBlue United partnership. I'm Jackson Fordyce. It's Thursday, June 26th. Let's get you smarter before your first meeting. OpenAI says China's Zaifu AI is racing to dominate AI infrastructure in developing nations and trying to beat the United States to the punch. The company claims that Zaifu, backed by the Chinese government and Saudi Aramco, is pitching itself to governments across Asia and Africa as a responsible, transparent, and audit-ready AI provider, an alternative to OpenAI's new AI for Countries initiative. Zaifu's play: get embedded early, lock in Chinese systems and standards in emerging markets before US and European firms arrive. But OpenAI, for its part, isn't sitting still. It just inked its first sovereign partnership last month, which we talked about, a deal with the UAE to build a massive Stargate data center in Abu Dhabi, and it's continuing to court governments in the Middle East, Asia, and beyond. And it's not just about chatbots. It's about who sets the rules, who builds the infrastructure, and defines the future of AI globally. And Trump-era officials are all in on this framing. At the Paris AI Action Summit, Vice President J.D. Vance said this: excessive regulation could kill a transformative industry. We're going to fight for pro-growth AI policies. So the question is no longer who builds the best AI. It's who gets there first and what the rest of the world signs onto. For more on this topic, I spoke with Parker McKee.
You got it. Jackson, thank you for having me on and love the work you do. I'm Parker McKee. I'm an investing partner here at Pillar. Spent the last 8.5 years with the firm. It's the first hire here. I do a lot of our software investing.
And my first question for Parker, with Zaifu AI racing to embed Chinese models across Asia and Africa, is this a tech export or a stealth campaign to entrench Beijing's digital influence?
I think there's a lot of different facts that need to be laid out in how this compares to maybe prior technology revolutions. And I think the idea that this is a one and done technology buy or implementation, I think is a little bit of a misnomer. So, in the 90s, you had to go buy a bunch of mainframes and install them, and you put up a big CapEx expense. And that was likely the tech stack you were stuck with for a little while. I just think it's important to highlight that we're talking about the model levels here. Models are APIs. Has there ever been anything easier to switch out? We're talking a single API key. And from what I can tell, I don't know exactly what's going on, in Africa, for example, but I suspect they're using APIs there as well. I don't think they're installing, Zaifu or OpenAI on mainframes and selling them physical hardware. And so I think the switching cost is extremely low, and I'm willing to believe that the people that are buying them probably just want the best solution. And then the one other thing I'll flag is that the depreciation rate of these models, or better put, the rate at which these models become obsolete is borderline comedically fast. The last number I saw was 20 days or 3 weeks. And so if a given advanced model becomes out of date in 3 weeks, then I think the general user preference is going to be to switch pretty frequently. And so I would say between the fact it's an API and the fact that, oh my God, is there a lot of competition and a lot of models, I'm less worried about a third world country getting stuck with a specific regime's model.
So Parker's giving these countries, namely the ones in Africa or just third world countries, developing nations, the benefit of the doubt, saying that they're not trying to implement specifically Chinese technology, but just they want the best tech basically as quickly as they can get it. And he was saying too, it's not a big deal, getting this tech implemented because the depreciation of this technology is maybe 3 weeks or 20 days. He's not that worried with a country getting stuck with, say, specifically China's AI technology. And then for my next question for Parker, I kind of wanted to transition into a conversation around OpenAI and American AI influence. So I asked him, are U.S. efforts like OpenAI for Countries truly global in vision, or just a response to a strategy that China's quietly been doing for many years?
I'm not sure who is exactly behind the effort of the OpenAI global initiative. I will say of what was released publicly, the idea that a country wants their own data center, they want to self-host models, makes sense to me. I think you can look at the EU and what they did with GDPR. They said, hey, the data of our select countries is really important to us. We have different privacy beliefs than other parts of the world, and we want those to be respected. And I guess I think about this similarly. If you are the EU and you decide that you think about data privacy differently than a country like the US or China or Brazil, I think it's totally reasonable that you might want to put your data regulations in place around the model layer. And so I see nothing wrong with that. I think there was some important wording highlighted in each of the releases around that these need to be democratic movements, and so their push with the UAE was that you're not allowed to push your authoritarian beliefs through this initiative, and the U.S. will work closely with OpenAI to monitor for that. And I directionally, personally, agree with that.
Yeah, so it makes sense that a nation wants control over their infrastructure and the ability to govern how AI models are trained and deployed on their soil. Totally get that. But I think what Parker was trying to say here, and I believe this too, and we don't have to get into this too deeply, but if OpenAI is serious about implementing this OpenAI for Countries initiative and, spreading I think they say democratic values, it can't just be phrasing or wording that they use in their press releases. Like, it has to hold up under pressure, especially like in Saudi Arabia. So in partnerships with countries where those values are still in question, like, is OpenAI gonna adhere to that and make that a really important piece of their business? And this kind of leads into my last question with Parker. With Saudi capital backing Xifu and Stargate UAE aligning with OpenAI, are we watching the rise of a multipolar AI order, or one where governments pick sides like they once did with telecoms and with oil?
I think the beauty of open source, again, we're talking about the model layer. I think we get into a whole different series of debates when we start talking about power and semiconductors. But at the model layer, given how much awesome work there's being done in the open source, I'm just less worried about it. I don't think it's this winner take all challenge that some are framing it as, that it's this war that one side can win. I think the rising tide lifts all boats. The number one model out of China right now is an open source model that's used very frequently here in the US. And, if you self-host it, they're not taking your data. And I suspect, the same thing's occurring in China. And so, the more open source work we have, the more continuous innovation we have, the more general adoption from lots of countries around the world. This all feels very, very positive sum to me.
Thank you to Parker for being on the show today. Today is day 4 of No Josiah, so it's hard to banter with someone else not in the room. It's hard to banter when you don't have a guest with you. We don't have your co-host right by your side, but it's okay. We are moving on to our next story. Bumble just laid off nearly a third of its workforce, but Wall Street kind of liked what it heard. The dating app just cut around 240 jobs globally, about 30% of its staff, and its goal is to save up to $40 million a year and funnel most of that back into the product and tech development. And so, as you can see here, investors loved that news, up 25%. I should check it this morning. Let's see if that number has changed, because this is at market close yesterday. All right, market is not open just yet. Oh, it's 2 minutes until market open, so I guess we won't know. But as of last night, it was at 652, up 25%, $1.30 from this news announcement. And so the main thing is this marks the second major layoff for Bumble in just a year, but this comes under returning CEO and founder Whitney Wolfe Herd, who took the reins back in March to turn the company around. And so Bumble's main focus is these 3 things. So remove bad actors, boost match quality, and then there's going to be a big Bumble BFF update, I think later this summer, that they said. I don't understand remove bad actors. Are there people within Bumble that are, trying to dismantle the infrastructure of Bumble? I don't know what that means, but they're removing 30% of these bad actors. But it's funny timing, because, it's not just Bumble feeling this pressure. Match Group, which owns Hinge and which owns Tinder, also slashed 13% of its workforce recently. This was just like 6 weeks ago. This is last month in May. But Bumble's betting big that a leaner, cleaner platform can just bring that spark back to not only the dating world, but to Bumble specifically. All right, our final story today comes from everyone's favorite airline in the world, Spirit Airlines. Spirit is back in the news, asking the United States government to block a proposed partnership between JetBlue and United. In a filing to the Department of Transportation, Spirit claims the deal is anti-competitive, arguing it would effectively turn JetBlue into a de facto vassal of United Airlines and spark a domino effect of consolidation across the industry. So what is this partnership? So it's called Blue Sky, and this is how they describe it in the press release for JetBlue and United. It is a new and unique collaboration that gives customers of both airlines even more options to find flights that fit their plans, as well as new opportunities to earn and use mileage plus miles and true blue points across both airlines. And so Spirit's main fear is that smaller carriers would feel forced to partner up with giants like American or Delta just to survive. But it's funny, just last year or 2 years ago, Spirit was trying to get acquired by JetBlue for $3.8 billion. And you can see here from this headline, JetBlue and Spirit are ending their $3.8 billion merger plan after a federal judge blocked the deal. The DOJ said no to it, which sent Spirit into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And so this could be just that they're salty. They're upset about the JetBlue deal not getting passed. And so they're taking it out on United Airlines, which I'm not a fan of United Airlines in the slightest, but still. It's pretty funny. So now Spirit's playing defense, warning that this new alliance could reshape the skies in ways regulators could not ignore. That is it for Venture Daily. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We hope we helped you get a little bit smarter today. And thank you to Content Stack for letting us film here every single morning. And if you like today's show, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or X, leave us a like, a comment, and a review. Throw us a 5-star rating if you think we earned it. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow morning on Venture Daily.